HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
Hearst Ranch is a proud sponsor of the Heritage Radio Network. Learn more about Hearst Ranch at HearstRanch.com.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. We're a member-supported food radio network broadcasting over 35 weekly shows live from Bushwick, Brooklyn. Join our hosts as they lead you through the world of craft brewing, behind the scenes of the restaurant industry, inside the battle over school food, and beyond. Find us at heritageradionetwork.org.
To the Grape Nation, your weekly wine journey. Our guest, and I'm excited about this guy, is Aldo Sohm, wine director at Le Bernadin and proprietor of Aldo Sohm Wine Bar, both in New York City. We're going to talk to Aldo about fine wine, fine dining, glassware, Gruners, and a whole bunch of other stuff. We'll also taste Aldo's Austrian Gruner for our weekly wine sip. I'm Sam Ben Ruby. Stay with us for the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We bring wine to the people. Austrian-born Aldo Sohm is a true Super Somm, a rock star, the OG. You may ask why. Well, he's been awarded the best Somm in Austria 4 times, best Somm in America, best Somm in the world. Aldo is the wine director at Four Star Restaurant and 3 Michelin star Le Bernadin, where he received a James Beard Award for Best Wine Service. He's the proprietor of Aldo Sohm Wine Bar, also in New York City. He is the brand ambassador for Zalto wine glasses. You don't know wine glasses until you pick up a Zalto. And, because he has plenty of time, he makes Gruner Veltliner with Gerhard Kracher. Aldo, welcome to the show. We got all that out of the way. I want our listeners to get a little idea of where you came from, because your background is about as full relative to what you do as anyone. So give me a little, tell us a little about your journey in life, wine, restaurants that got you to where you are today, which is on my show at Le Bernadin, your own wine bar, the glasses, the Gruner and all that. But buzz through it. It's more a matter of where you came from and, now we'll get to the stories and details later.
Cool. Well, with that introduction, I'm blushing. I'm glad nobody can see me.
It's all true.
Look, I got very lucky, to be very honest. I wanted to become originally a chef, because once you get out of school, it's very difficult once you're in the age of 15, 16. What are you going to do, right? In which kind of direction you wanted to move on with your life and, continue that journey.
Is Austria different? Like in the U.S., you go right to college. in Austria, you look at a vocation college.
Well,
or
yeah,
other
but
thing?
in which kind of direction you start specializing yourself into?
Okay.
Ultimately, so I wanted to become a chef. I saw, one chef, showing me from all these cruise ships, what they did, and of course, of traveling the wide world, it was just, I was inspired. I thought I wanted to do that, and my father said, you should go into a tourism college, because you're much broader with that. And that made sense to me. So I finished
So he
school.
said not just chef cooking, look at the broader tourism,
picture.
hospitality.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so I continued that. And at my first internship, it turned out right away, the kitchen was not my world. Thankfully, they put me in. It was a disaster.
In the kitchen?
Oh, forget it.
Well, you found out early enough.
Yeah, well,
That was good.
it's very important that you know what you don't like.
Right. Bingo.
No, it was not good. And
Right.
thankfully, they put me the last 2 weeks of that internship into front of the house. And boy, I loved working with people. They said, "Oh, we should have done this right from the first week on." They saw this. I just, I was almost in my element, and I pursued that part. So of course, I finished school. What do you know when you're 18, 19-year-old? I mean, of course, you think you know everything, but that's a myth.
True.
I started going out and into a first restaurant just to get more experience, to get the speed because it was way too slow. And back then, I didn't like wine at all. It was too bitter, too sour. Had no approach to that.
It wasn't a family thing either at the table or going
Nothing.
out? Okay.
Nothing.
Wow.
I mean, of course, my parents drank wine, but
it wasn't wrapped around your
not at all.
growing up.
Nothing. No background. Literally zero. But I had more contact to Bacardi Coke. It was sweeter, and
Nothing wrong with that.
I mean, of course, that shifted. And at one point, I worked in a restaurant. I met two Swiss couples who were like me today. They were super excited at breakfast, what they're going to have for lunch and for dinner, and which wine they should have. And that became one of the benchmarks in my life where they asked me.
They were foodies, right?
They were 100% on. I mean,
Right.
It's very typical, traditional for Swiss anyway. They love to eat. They love to spend also money on wine. And it's also a country which has an enormous amount of per capita spending on wine.
The wine never leaves the country. It's so good.
Yeah.
Right?
But yeah, they drink also a lot of French wine.
Yeah.
That being said, I started, either there were two options. Either I told him I wouldn't know, or I started reading. And back in the day, there was no internet. So it was much more difficult to get onto information and to get onto books. In today's world, I know they changed it a little bit. In today's world, you have to filter the information because there's such a flood out there. So studying was very, very different. And I was bitten by the bug immediately. And ironically, at the same time, my father went on buying wine, for himself he went to Alto Adige, to Italy, because I'm from Tyrol, so Italy is very, very close.
It's a hot region now.
Yeah. And I bought my first bottle, which was an Darmaci by Angelo Gaia in 1983. I read about it.
Started at the top with Gaia.
Well, back then it was kind of insane to spend that kind of money. I mean, it's like if somebody buys, Chateau Latour, right, as the first bottle, as an equivalent, right? It was.
It is the equivalent. Gaia is to Italian what First Growth is to Bordeaux.
So, yeah, but I didn't mean that. I thought, I was bitten by the bug, and, if I put my heart on it, I put it 120% on. There's no plan B. There's nothing. It's just full. Right. I'm fascinated by it, and I was driving that. And at first, as a European, it's not as big as the United States, but it's you have so many different languages in there. So languages were more important to me than pursue right away the sommelier education program. So of course I followed the wine scene and started tasting with great people, but I learned also languages. As good as I could, and finished my sommelier diploma in 1998. And back then, our trainer in Austria, it's two parts. It's 2 years, goes over 2 years. And in the first part, there was the World Championship of Sommeliers in Vienna, And our trainer actually was the candidate for Austria. So I joined. He asked us, he invited us, do you want to join us? And,
Like a study group or something?
it was more like, you want to show that, you want to witness that. It's a whole
come
weekend,
along for the
right?
ride.
The problem was just, it was in between exams. And I said, yeah, of course, right? And in my study group, everybody said, are you completely insane? It's the exams. And I said, well, how much more can I learn rather than there, right? I mean, what I don't know right now, I'm not going to learn in between the exams. So, and, it was just exhilarating. The adrenaline was there, and it was crushing and intimidating. And I swore to myself, I will never, ever do this. This is insane. Well, never say never in life. I should be very careful about that.
For sure.
9 months after the trainer came back to me and said, we're looking for a new candidate, and we're looking at you. You would be ideal. And I said, are
to
you
compete
sure?
for the
compete
best sommelier in Austria.
in Austria,
Right.
And that was, there were a lot of very prominent people there, and I said, me, I'm a humble guy, right, and wasn't too self-secure either. And he said, don't worry about it. We train you and we set you up. And yeah, I became right second. So it was
First time out.
first
second.
time out, right second.
What year was that, Aldo?
That was in 1999.
Okay.
Then 01.
You ain't settling for second place.
Of course not.
Okay.
So I went one more time, became second again. Of course, those are setbacks in life which are absolute key. Because the setbacks, they make you work harder. It's tests in life. Are they painful? Trust me, they're very painful. And you question everything, and you're desperate, and you're unhappy. But they're just tests in life. Really, really want to pursue that goal, and if you really want to go for it. And you're going to put more work up. And yeah, a year after, I won, first time. So a huge relief. Then I won 2 more times, and I realized, since all the competitions are in a foreign language, my English was okay, but not good enough. And I saw all the top guys, they worked in a foreign country. And with age 33, I decided to relocate and came to America. And it was actually funny because at
Was
first...
that your first choice? I mean, you knew you were coming here?
No,
or?
as an Austrian, ultimately, you always want to go to Wolfgang Puck.
Right.
That's your to-go address. But I never got I never got an answer from them. And then one of my trainers actually knew a winemaker and said, actually, I know someone who looks. And it was Gerhard Kracher. And so I went to Star Wine, which was a wine competition in Philadelphia. And accidentally, my flight back was from JFK. So I stopped by. And, we talked, and seemed to be everything was just lined up. And back then I was also teaching on a tourism high school. And he said to me, but do you have a safe job? I said, yeah, but I'm bored. It's very safe, it's very secure, but I'm bored
It's not
to hell.
what you want.
I'm bored to hell.
Right.
And I get antsy. And yeah, I came July 4, 2004. Got my visa, everything, came right over here. And yeah, that was the start.
So you come July 4th, 4th of July to the U.S. You go to work at Walsey?
Yes.
Okay, so you're there were a couple of restaurants.
Yeah, well, I was there for 3 years in that group. I opened with Kurt Thor in the Lower East Side.
All great restaurants,
Yeah,
highly
and then
regarded.
Blaue Gans, moved back to Walsey, and then I went back one more time to Austria to defend my title, which I succeeded.
That was your fourth?
The fourth one, yeah, in 06.
What was the gap between the last win and that win? A few years?
No, two. And then I spoke with the American sommeliers because they asked me to teach for them. And Andrew Bell helped me also to train. And he's one of the best trainers because he's painful. He breathes down your neck. He slams constantly the things which you don't know into your face. And he's uncomfortable, but that's what you want ultimately as a trainer. Not somebody who taps on your shoulder and says how great you are. Now, of course, that's sometimes a little hard to digest, but it's important you have someone who, constantly pushes you.
So at that point, is he talking to you about best Somm in America?
Well, he didn't. Actually, I asked him.
Okay.
And he said that would jeopardize our friendship because I cannot talk to you in that case because I have to be, correct.
Impartial.
So actually, we didn't communicate for half a year.
Wow.
And yeah, I went in 2007 and I won. And I didn't want to compete anymore. Because I said it takes up too much of my life. You give up everything.
Go back for a second. You won the Best Somm in America in 2007.
Yeah.
You go through a competition and you emerge the winner and you represent the country. How does it work?
Yes.
Now, I'm assuming to get to be the Best Somm in America, there are some guys that are still out there that you competed against, right?
Yeah. Those are very good guys.
I would think
very,
so.
very good guys.
Yeah.
I mean, one of them was Yannick Benjamin.
Right.
And that's a rock solid guy.
Yep.
Rock solid.
Yep.
I was sweating.
Yeah, he should be. So you win Best Somm in America in 2007. You decide this is enough, but...
Then I got a phone call, because Le Bernardin was looking for a wine director. And we talked. Right on my first interview was Maggie Lecause. I thought that's actually a very good sign. Then I met Eric.
Maggie is the proprietor.
Yeah. Huge.
And they hit the ground running. So when they called you, you knew it was a Mecca, a palace.
No, of course. I mean, if you don't know what Le Bernardin is in New York.
No, but even then,
yeah.
It didn't take years to... so that was a terrific phone
I mean,
call.
She's an inspiration. That is a woman. I always make jokes about it. I think German generals they're sloppy against her. I tell you that.
There you go.
The discipline she brings up on the table. There's a reason why she's on that level where she is.
So you get the call at Le Bernardin when? What year?
2007.
2007.
2007.
And you're still there, and we'll get to that. But this Best Somm in the World thing comes up. Tell me how you get pulled into that.
Well, I didn't want to go, and then Yannick Benjamin was actually the next follow-up, but he stepped. He couldn't make it, and then Andrew came back to me. I think 8 weeks prior, and asked me again. I said, "Listen, this is the logic choice. I need to ask you again. Would you do it?" And I said, "Sure," because I had a review which wasn't as pleasant.
Right.
And I felt like I was treated unfairly.
Right.
And I thought, you know what? Now I'm going to show it to you.
And you did it.
It was hell. Those 8 weeks, they were absolutely hell.
Now, was that a shortened period because you were asked later?
Of course,
I mean,
yeah.
You had it, right. You're working at Le Bernardin, which is crazy hours on the floor, ordering wine, everything.
I didn't ask for extra off.
Jesus Christ. So you do that, and what happens?
But bear one thing in mind. Working at Le Bernardin, you have one major advantage. You don't have maybe as much time to study, which is obviously important, but I utilize that, before work, after work, on the weekends. However, you perform, on practical service parts constantly on competition level.
The highest level is there.
That's what I tell
you need to do at Le Bernardin at the competition.
That's
a lot of people don't have that exposure.
Exactly. That's what I tell my sommeliers often when they go to the Court of Master Sommeliers. This is what you ultimately...
Very good point.
That is, again, we work that every day.
That's it. Right. That's a very good point. So you compete and you win. You study while you're working at Le Bernardin. I think a year later, you've only been at Le Bernardin a couple of years. You win the James Beard Award for Best Wine Server.
That came from nowhere. I have to really admit, I was just humbled. I couldn't even believe it anymore.
That's a big deal.
And everything came based from that review. It was just, my life changed. Again, from one moment, you completely at the rock bottom, and then it's just you skyrocket out of it. But it was all, it's funny. I went back to those reviewers and I said, you have no idea. I met them 2 years ago, and I said, you have no idea how much thankful I am to you.
The impact that it had.
You weren't well intended to me. However, you actually got the best out of me. And I worked so hard, and you actually put me onto the map.
I agree that those things have an effect on you. All right, so Aldo got to Le Bernadin then. He's still there 17, 18 years later. So now I want to move to what you're doing now, which is a handful of things. So bear with me. But one quick question. Do you still compete or mentor for competitions, or you're done with that?
No, I stopped competing.
What about mentoring?
I do that a lot.
You do?
I do that a lot.
Mentoring careers or mentoring for competitions?
Both.
Both, okay.
Both.
You enjoy that?
I think this is a responsibility I took on. Look, when I was a candidate and competed, people were very gracious with their time. I think it's only responsible that if somebody asks you, that of course you step up on your plate and help that person.
I love hearing that, and it's a gracious path to take.
And look, one thing I had last year a meeting with Jacques Tiempo, and he gave me one quote, and it is so true, and that's one of my mantras. You should never forget history and where you came from, and that's the part which is most important to me. Look, you stay with both feet on the ground, no matter where people might lift you, and help others.
It's not hard to be nice and to be grounded.
Well, a smile didn't kill anyone.
No. All right, so I want to talk to you about what you're doing now and all the projects you're involved in. Let's start with Le Bernadin, but let me set that up. You're the perfect guy to ask this to. How important is wine to food in fine dining, which is something you live deeper than anybody?
Look, they both go with each other. I think in today's world.
But food gets the top billing. I mean, you and I are wine guys, but so how important is wine?
I think, look, it's very interesting when we look through where is the restaurant world moving into and where is it developing. When you look at the audience, what are they asking you? What are they looking for? I mean, look.
So where is that going? Tell me what you saw or seeing.
People come to a restaurant because of the chef, because of the food. I mean, that's whether we like this as wine people or not, but that's a fact.
That was my point. The food gets the top.
That's a fact. But look, people also look for the entire experience. People just don't go to a place because the food is great, but the front of the house is terrible, and vice versa. In today's that used to be 10 or 20 years ago, you might have gotten away with that. In today's world, you don't get away with that anymore. You have to have a complete performance onto that. Now, look, I consider myself lucky to work with Eric Kracher because, look, if you are a sommelier, you ultimately need a great chef in order to perform also onto that level.
It elevates.
It elevates
it.
it.
And it forces you to stay on your game.
And it's great to work with him because... look, he challenges, which I like. I like challenges. I never was good at easy jobs,
right?
Because you're bored. And it's great to work with him, and he's an inspiration also. The way how he runs back of the house, and it's just a great family where I'm in, right? But of course, look, is every day easy? No, but I consider this as a family. So, you're not going to get rid of your brothers.
No. I think either Eric or you said, this is a quote, a great pairing doesn't just emphasize the wine or the food. It transforms them both and elevates the partnership to a perfect harmony, which is really where wine comes in and is, the complementary partner.
That's...
All right, so let's talk a little about that. So we're talking to Aldo Sohm. Aldo is the wine director at Le Bernadin, and he's the proprietor at Aldo Sohm Wine Bar, which we'll talk about. So Le Bernadin, arguably one of the finest restaurants, not in America, but the world, okay? Arguably. The menu we know is very seafood-driven. Eric says fish is the star of the plate. So now you're tasked with designing a wine program to that type of food, of which there's a lot of seafood restaurants, but not at that level. So how do you design the wine list? What's important? How do you interact with Eric?
Well, there's a funny story. I think it happened within the first month. Of course, I knew who Eric Kracher was. I knew he had a very strong passion for Bordeaux. and a very strong passion for tequila.
Okay.
So in the first month, he asked me, there was a party, and where he, I think for his family, and he sat down as well, and he created a menu, and he asked me to do a pairing with it. And I remember there was a poached escolar with red wine bernaise with it.
What's escolar, a fish?
It's a Hawaiian white tuna.
Okay.
And
when you say white, the way you see tuna reddish,
it's literally white.
White, okay.
Mm-hmm. And what's very interesting there was, I remember the wine, it was a Pinot Noir, Meurice and Niche Chauffour from Hubert-Lignier, 01. And the wine was just delicious, and it was just in the perfect stadium. And I paired them with it. And then 5 minutes before the event started, I see the Maître D coming, upset in both hands over there. It's just, I mean, today, our Maître D, Ben, right, he's like a brother to me. And, but he's very emotional then. And he came rallied up right behind him, his assistant, right, also upset. And then my assistant back then, Romain, and he started yelling, how come he didn't tell Aldo, chef likes only Bordeaux, he doesn't like Burgundy, and so on, kept on ranting and ranting.
Oh,
I said, listen, it's 5 minutes before the event, we're not going to do anything right now. Chef asked me for a pairing. It's great that he likes Bordeaux, but he didn't give me a filet steak, he gave me an escolar.
Right.
So
this is what goes.
This is what it goes, right? So I'm not going to change anything right now. And it was funny, then chef came after the event, and he said, you know what? It was actually a really delicious pairing. It worked perfectly, but I like Bordeaux. I said, that's great, but just cook me a filet steak or something.
Right. Let me do my job. Let me pair. So that's sort of the philosophy. You do the obvious stuff when you buy. I mean, you've been running the program for upwards of 20 years. You inherited some wines. You bought some wines. The menu changes seasonally and all that. You really have to think about what the customer wants, right? Like Eric wants Bordeaux, so do customers, and what the food warrants. How do you juggle it?
I mean, look, ultimately, you never know who is in front of you. That's rule number one in New York.
Customer-wise?
Customer-wise, yeah. You never know who is in front of you and where might people be in 2 years. Never forget that.
Be nice to everyone.
Be respectful.
Right.
Treat people like you want to be treated. And
it's funny you say that, because who wouldn't do that? But not every somm in every restaurant does do that.
I mean, look, I wouldn't say some. It's just natural sometimes.
Hospitality, people yes.
You might work long hours. You haven't had a day off. That you get grumpy is the most logical thing. It's inevitable. We are fatigued, right? This can be in any industry, not just a sommelier. It's in any industry. However, that's why it's important. Look, Eric looks always that people have a balance, because then exactly you don't get into this situation.
Right. I agree.
I mean, look, it's of course we work a lot, but it's important that we take care of ourselves. I always quote him on that, because look, if you're unable to take care of yourself, how can you take care of others?
Right.
That's impossible.
I think that in a restaurant, if the employees are happy, they go out on the floor in a good way, and that transcends to the customer.
With a smile. But to answer your question is, look, you need to listen what customers want. You don't know where they are which day. Look, some people might just want to have a Pinot Grigio, and that's totally fine. Some people say, I want these big California cabs, because that's what I like. Now, look, I know people right now. People know me. It became a little easier. But I tell them sometimes.
They defer to you more.
Yeah, but I tell them, this type of wine might be not your best choice with Dover Sole. And, some people said, but we still like these wines. And, we are not here to judge. We are here to, to service you and make sure you have a great time and hopefully come back next week.
But that being said, there's a cellar full of Merlot, Montfrachet, Chablis that complements this type of food. The people that defer to you and say, Aldo, here's what I'm eating. What am I drinking?
Exactly.
I mean, there's a lot of that,
I have
too,
a lot
right?
of that.
Yeah.
A lot of that. But look, it's just how you work with people, how you get, a relationship with them, and then they trust you. Right. That's something which takes typically, when you take over a program in a new restaurant, it takes you a year to 2 years just to get to know really everything ups and downs, and customers trust you.
Right. I agree with that. So I think the lesson there is, assuming you have an understanding and a good sommelier, you should be inquisitive and tell the sommelier information. What do you like? What do you drink? Styles. And that'll give you a pathway to give them what they want.
I push sometimes also people in terms of, look, I have people who drink always specific styles.
Right.
And look, Maggie LaCoste is a living example. She used to drink only California Chardonnay. That was her palate.
Really?
And she loved Puligny Morachet Pucelle from Le Fleuve.
Okay.
But obviously that's not an inexpensive wine, so she couldn't do this every day. No, we didn't want to do it every day. So one day, I paired it with a chef made a lobster with a little bit white asparagus and a hollandaise. And I paired a Gruner Veltliner with it.
Perfect.
Now, you can imagine giving a French an Austrian wine, which typically...
But that asparagus, you have to take that into consideration.
And I still saw her reaction, right? She tasted that wine and she came up from that chair. You could see that and I knew she was hooked. And ever since, I just laughed about it and said, you became the biggest Austrian wine ambassador.
That's funny. And we'll find out that you are. I want to move away from Le Bernadin and get to some other projects, but I just want you to quickly tell me a couple of things. Because Le Bernadin is a special place. It's not your typical restaurant. Give me an idea. I mean, in the years you've been there, the most expensive bottle, what's the price tick off for the most expensive bottle? That's just a fun fact. It's silly, but I want to know.
Look, here's the one thing. I get this question often asked. One of the mantras we have, we never talk about at the restaurant who sits in the restaurant, how often they come, with whom they go, and which price points. We never talk about that.
Don't tell me the price then. Tell me the wine.
I wouldn't even go into that part.
Okay, Romani Conti 61, whatever.
That's
it doesn't matter. I respect that. All right, so I'm not going to ask you to tell me a crazy story about a customer because you won't do that, or about you spilling a fancy wine on somebody, whatever. Not that you ever did, but we'll move off of all of that.
Oh, I did.
I'm sure you have.
It happens, but you're not proud of that.
No. But it's sort of a rite of passage in all of that. All right, so Le Bernadin.
But bear in mind, every complaint has an opportunity to connect with a customer.
If you handle it the right way.
Absolutely.
I agree with you. You become closer.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on. You made a pivot. You didn't leave. You just made a pivot from fine dining to a more casual and eclectic environment. You opened Aldo Sohm Wine Bar, which is right a little around the corner, arcade from Le Bernadin. Tell me how that came about, why, and what are you doing different there? What can you do there that's good that you can't, do on the floor at a Le Bernadin?
Well, I might sound I'm the biggest cheerleader for Eric and Maggie, but I'm one of them. The way how this came around was Maggie and Eric came to me one day and said, look, we have this opportunity and you've been with us for so many years. You did a great job. We'd like to reward you and make sure you stay in our family.
And that was not a reaction. You weren't thinking about leaving, and they had
No.
They came to you and said,
look, to me, I'm addicted to work on the floor. I love that. It's to me, look, that's what a sommelier is about. You buy wine, you sell wine. And I like the customer contact. Look, you're here with the greatest, the smartest people in the world, but you come also around with people who come once a year to a restaurant and they saved for a year to afford that meal. That's the most rewarding thing you can have.
I agree.
And again, the reason why I love it in New York so much is because it's the people. That's the special part
Very
about
diverse.
New York.
So they came to you and they said, listen, what do you think of this idea?
Yeah, and it was never on my radar to open up a wine bar. And I said, wow. What could be worse, right? I could not envision, better partners than you, right? Of course. I'd love to do that, right?
And that was what year?
That was in...
14?
No. That was in 2012.
12, okay.
2012, 2013, in kind of that frame. And yeah, and to name this after Aldo, after my name, actually, that wasn't my idea.
High honor.
That was actually Eric's idea. And I said, you know that I'm way too humble. I said, yeah, but Eric said, but your brand, I think, is strong enough.
It's you.
Right? And that's when you started initially. Here's the interesting point. People come to Le Bernardin because of the food. At the wine bar, it's just a reverse situation. They come
for
to me for the wine.
So what can you do there? You know, it's a wine bar, which is a different environment, you know, than a grand restaurant. What are the fun things or type of things that you've been doing, you introduced?
You know, there's a funny story to that. I used to work with a sommelier. Now she works in a different place. Her boyfriend worked for a wine importer. And I went on the Today Show. And, you know, you can serve their wines up to $20 retail. And I did that. And then she said, oh, my God, my boyfriend made a really funny comment. I have to share that with you. He said, $20 and below? How would Aldo know?
He would,
right?
though.
And you know what? I thought, it's actually a funny comment, but I thought, it's true. I mean, look, how easy to get the great $100 bottle of wine.
The environment that you're in.
It's easy.
You're
right?
a product of your... Right.
But a $20 bottle retail, you got to think about that. And, you know, this has inspired me. And that I brought to the wine bar, where I thought, look, you deal with wines which are on a more sensitive price range and still have fun, and you want to drink them.
So you curated interesting value wines.
Yeah.
So you can go into Aldo Sohm Wine Bar, find some interesting wines for some terrific, you know, value price.
To me, this might sound, silly, but to me it was important that you offer in Midtown a decent glass of wine for $10 out of a Zalto glass. Right? $60 them.
We're going to take a break in a minute, but when we come back, and we're not breaking the second. Wait, hold on. We're going to talk about Zalto a little, and we're going to talk about the Gruner. But finish your thought about the wine bar.
It was important to me that you get that. But look, we had a trend in the last couple of years, which I found very interesting, because it was always for cheaper wines, lower markups, below $50, below $40, which I think, of course, you have to have that. That's imperative. But bear in mind, you know, you have also customers who want to really spend money onto it because they have to celebrate of a
They're
special
coming in for an occasion.
Or something.
They'll buy a vintage Bordeaux.
They want to buy a $2,000 bottle of wine, right? So, look, what are you going to do if you have a $40 bottle of wine? You know, you're going to almost offend them, right? So you're doing a disservice to that client. So ultimately was the idea to create a list which you would satisfy everyone. And now it's not a big book. I didn't want to create that either because it's 250 items, not more. Because, look, it's a wine bar. If it takes you longer than 5 minutes to choose a bottle of wine, you know, you do not doing yourself a service to your customers because
Agree.
The other partners sit next to it and are bored.
What is the SKU? Is it French-centric? Is it...
It has a very strong French empathy on.
Then where does it go?
You know, Italy, obviously, Austria as well a little bit, but also California.
Right.
But the center is probably European-driven.
Right. When you go to California, are you sort of forced to carry the name stuff, or do you look for some interesting plays there?
On the beginning, look, I didn't know where the journey with the wine bar, what is the audience buying, right? So I kept myself room into that. Actually, I was pretty much on it where I thought it would go. And I don't go for the big houses there. It's people look more for the leashes, for the smaller producers, for what's new.
That's where when you go to a wine bar like that and you let Aldo look for that, you're going to taste, you know, stuff. All right, Aldo, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to do three things. I want to talk about Zalto glasses a little. I want to talk about your Gruner project, but we'll talk about that even more when we sip it. And I want to subject you to our wine list, which is a bunch of questions. So we're talking to Aldo Sohm. You're listening to The Grape Nation. We'll be right back after this message.
Hearst Ranch is a proud sponsor of the Heritage Radio Network. The Hearst family has been raising cattle on the rich, sustainable native grasslands of California's Central Coast for over 150 years. Piedra Blanca Rancho in San Simeon is the original Hearst Ranch, founded by George Hearst in 1865. George's son was the famous publisher William Randolph Hearst. In addition to being known for building the iconic Hearst Castle, William was, like his father before him, an avid rancher. In his words, I would rather spend a month at the ranch than any place in the world. Thanks to one of the largest land conservation easements in California history, a joint effort with the California Rangeland Trust, the American Land Conservancy, and the state of California, the working landscape at Hearst Ranch will be preserved forever. Learn more about Hearst Ranch at HearstRanch.com.
All right, we're back. We're back with my guest, Aldo Sohm. We're going to talk to Aldo a little about glassware, and then we're going to talk to him about his Gruner project. And then, like I said, we're going to subject him to our wine list. All right, so Aldo, you are the Alto Zalto. You are, and correct me if I'm wrong, the brand ambassador for a line of wine glasses called Zalto, Z-A-L-T-O. Now, nobody better than you could do a quick description of what a Zalto glass is and why you put your sweat towards it.
Well, as an Austrian sommelier, it is impossible not to get around the topic glasses. Because when you look a little bit in history back, go 150 years backwards, when the Austrian monarchy still was intact, all in the Bohemia was the craftsmanship of glass making. It's from different...
it's in the blood.
It's in the blood. I mean, that's the craftsmanship sits right there.
Right.
And I got in touch the first time with Zalto 2007. And
is this a company that's been around a long time, or it's a fairly...
It's been a while. It's been around for quite some time,
Okay.
but it has a new ownership.
Okay.
Because Mr. Kurt Zalto was a brilliant artist, but on the business side, he wasn't as brilliant.
So he sold it.
Yeah. And in 2007, I got the first time around. Everybody said around me, this is the best glass in the world. To me, I found this an interesting statement, because what does that mean, right? So I tested it. And because at first when you touch it, you say, this breaks immediately. And as you saw, I came in a regular paper bag with the glasses in. It came from Midtown.
That's crazy.
In a packed
with no
subway.
paper or anything.
Nothing, right?
This guy's nuts.
So a full subway. So again,
Right.
and both glasses came intact, right?
Perfect.
They probably come back intact back to the wine bar.
Right.
No, so I tested these glasses and I noticed immediately it's a very powerful glass in terms of performance. It magnifies flavors.
So when you say performance, there's a magnification of the flavor more than other glasses.
Yes.
So it brings it up and out to the nose and the palate.
Yeah.
More than any other glass you...
I mean, look, a glass is like a speaker.
You could buy a crappy one or a good one.
Yeah, and again, you will get more out of the product, right? You get more music out of your speaker, depending what it is. So
Right.
you enhance that, and I play with that because if you do pairings, right, certain glasses influence and change the wine completely. I do these tastings at the wine bar often, serve the same wine blind from a different shape of glass, and don't tell people. And it's really interesting, the outcome. They can't believe it, even though it comes from the same bottle.
I think people who know wine understand that a little, but I think people who don't, it's a great opportunity to sort of up the game.
What's special on Zalto is, look, it's a very tiny company. It's all about craftsmanship. It's a hand-blown glass, not a machine-blown glass. You notice this is it's first of all super light.
Yes.
It has a really sexy stem. People really love to hold it, and it's a good feel. And secondly, it's the edge on top doesn't have this lip, which actually the other glass you full of it, and that's why it falls much more further on your palate.
I didn't realize that.
And the beautiful part, what we noticed, because at the wine bar we have it 100% Zalto glasses, there was actually no choice. One thing I learned, and when you observe, I observe people, they hold their glass constantly, and that's why they drink more than they actually would normally do, because once you hold the glass nonstop, you drink quicker.
So if you give them something they want to hold, they're going to drink quicker and more.
It's really funny to observe that.
You're brilliant. All right, so Zalto makes different shapes for different types of wine. I mean, how many different shape offerings?
It's 9 different shapes.
Okay.
And that's it. They don't want to expand more,
Right.
because at one point, how much real estate do we really have in New York?
It covers all the major Bordeaux,
Exactly.
Burgundy, Chards, all that stuff. And where can we get Zalto at? Online, better retailers?
You get it at better retailers. You get it from my website, aldosohm.com.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
So here's the challenge. Treat yourself. Go out and buy one and see what it does, and you'll probably want more because Aldo's not wrong. The glass really does up the game.
It's a very simple thing. You don't even have to go go in a restaurant.
Right. Go to Aldo Sohm Wine Bar and try a glass of wine.
And try it, and you'll see it yourself, right? There's no risk for you to take. The problem is only, and I've seen this many times now, once you touch one, you're sort of hooked.
Right.
Just be prepared.
I think you stated it eloquently before. Once you get it in your hand, you don't want to let go. And when it's in your hand, you want more wine, more wine, more wine. And that's a very positive thing. All right, so that's Zalto glasses. Now, you started making wine, no surprise, Austrian Gruner Veltliner. You started a project with a very well-known wine family and winemaker, Gerhard Kracher. We'll talk about the wine itself towards the end of the show because the segment will taste it. But tell me how the collaboration, the project came together.
I was traveling in Argentina, and I was very inspired there. And, it was just in 2008, right after I won the competition, and they were very excited to see me. And they asked me to criticize their wine. And I said, what? Who am I?
Right.
And
that's a very humble thing to say.
No, but that's the reality. That's the way.
Right.
And on my flight back, I thought that actually what I'm doing doesn't make any sense. I criticize only, but I don't make nothing. And criticizing is very easy.
And my wife will tell me that sounds like me, but go ahead.
So I did some thinking, and I looked a little bit into it, and the second person I spoke to was Gerhard Kracher. I was in Queens for lunch, and he just came. He just called me because he got off the plane. He called me to join me.
An Austrian Veltliner with a Austrian winemaker, famous family, starts in Queens.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's.
I believe you.
And then I told him about that idea, and Gerhard looks and thinks and said, "Why don't we do something together?" That sounded reasonable to me, and my instinct felt this actually very, very good harmony. And we talked immediately what we did not want to make. We were completely aligned with that, and 09 was the first vintage that we produced.
So Gerhard has the wine family, the wine facilities. He's a winemaker.
Gerhard is obviously.
Tell me what you contributed.
Gerhard is obviously they're very, very famous on sweet wine.
Right.
Now, they can hold up with the top brands.
You went dry.
Yeah, they're absolutely magnificent. And they make also dry wines. But we went up to the Weinviertel, which is, Gerhard doesn't have an experience up there.
Well, explain what that is. You said Weinviertel. That's a region.
The Weinviertel is a region north
Not
of Vienna.
Not the traditional Gruner region, right?
Well, there's a lot of Gruner Veltliner grown there.
Okay.
But it's the largest region in Austria, a wine growing area in Austria. And we wanted to go into that area because we didn't look for the Wachau, Kammtal, Kremstal. We looked for the Weinviertel.
Right.
And for specific flavor reasons. And look, neither me or Gerhard has any idea from up there. And that enabled us, we could do things which typically, you wouldn't do in that area. Because you have, your family traditions. Because you did it that way for 100 years. That's why you have to do it another 100 years. We didn't have to carry this back package. We could literally think free. And obviously, my Le Bernardin impact came there much more stronger because, look, I work a lot with Burgundy. And I have good relationships with Burgundy winemakers. And I learned there a lot. So obviously, we don't want to make a Gruner Veltliner which tastes like, Montrachet.
No.
But we use certain techniques just to maintain a freshness. Because Gruner Veltliner, as much as I love it, but if it gets to a certain ripeness level, it loses the acidity fairly quickly. And then it becomes...
the beauty of it.
Well, we want to pick it before, right?
Right.
Just to maintain the freshness. And that I get to learn. That I bring in.
So the first vintage
was
reflected
09.
That?
Reflected.
Did you sort of hit the marks you were shooting for?
Well, look, the first vintage was I was very happy with.
Okay, that's a big deal.
And I'll be maybe more honest than I should be. The wine had a haziness.
In the color?
Yeah.
Was it filtered?
No, that's the whole point.
Okay.
We didn't filter.
Or fine?
We didn't find it either because I listened to it in an interview to a seminar with Olivier Zintumbrecht, and he said fining and filtering is not necessary. You just have to extend the barrel aging for half a year.
Did you?
We did it for 9 months.
And it still came out a little
And guess
hazy.
what? The wine came out, and I was so excited. Right? And I looked into the first bottle and said, Lord, this is a haze, right? I called Gerhard, and Gerhard said, no, this is only one bottle. I said, no, it's the whole case. So he tried it as well, and over there, of course, it had it too. So at the same time, Jean-Marc Rouleau, a couple of months after, took me to a fining lesson in Bonn, right? And it was such an intense and great tasting. I learned so much there. I called Gerhard immediately and said, we got to find. And Gerhard said on the phone, over my dead body, and went on a rant.
And you didn't?
He's never finding their life and blah, blah, blah. Kept going on and on and on. I said, and tell me when you're done. I said, okay, I'm finished. I said, now go over there. It takes a couple of hours. I call you then after, and then you still can tell me over your dead body or you love it. I know the answer, so just give yourself, do the trial.
So it worked out.
And it worked out perfectly.
Thank God. Well, you got good advice from a good guy.
The funny thing is, I went back to Olivier, and again, Olivier Zintumbrecht is an absolute authority. To me, the guy is a fountain of wisdom. And I went back, and of course, we laughed over that, and I said, I know it's not true, but we learned also it's Gruner Veltliner, which has a very high protein level in the first place.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little more about the wine when we sip it. So we're going to just jump into this feature. It's the wine list. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. You don't have to dwell on them. Move through them quickly. I think our audience is interested in your take on a lot of things. So the first question is, what are you drinking now? Not right now because we're drinking yours, but are you tasting seasonal wines? Are you going back to a region?
I'm the moodiest drinker you can possibly imagine.
You are. You're not a moody guy, though.
Nope. But I think I listen to what my body is craving. Right.
And right now, that is?
Right now, I love bright burgundies again.
Okay.
I'm really onto them. I'm very heavy on Northern Rhone reds.
Okay. What? Saint Joseph? What?
I like Saint Joseph.
What Northern Rhones?
I like the little Syrah from Jamais, or I like Côte Rôtie from Jamais, obviously. Who doesn't? But,
right. It's a terrific one.
Love Cornas, with no question. So I'm right now in kind of that vein.
Okay, so white Burgundy and Northern Rhones. Good answer. Aldo Sohm's favorite wine and food pairing? Out of the restaurant, at home, or when you go out?
It's a simple thing. Don't take this personal, but as a European, you have no affection to turkey for Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Right? I know you have to grow up with it.
I'm very offended, but keep going.
I cook short ribs, and nothing for me is greater than if you have really old Californian red.
So short ribs, which is a very meaty, thick, saucy, a California red leaning towards cab?
Last year, actually, as a matter of fact, I took an old Zinfandel from Rich.
A Zin? That'll hold up well.
And you know what? It was an epic combination.
Perfect answer all around. All right, take yourself out of the wine bar and the restaurant. I want to know what Aldo Sohm's favorite wine restaurant and or bar is. And the answer is based on places that have a great attention towards wine selection, wine service. You got to go somewhere sometime. What's good to you? New York, Brooklyn, Europe? Stay with New York.
To me, a to-go-to place is Charlie Bird.
Okay.
Why? They have Zalto glasses.
Okay.
It's a great glass. No, it makes all the difference.
There. He knows what he's doing.
It makes all the difference. No, but I think it's a fun place. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's relaxed, and yet you can have a great meal there.
You're dead on, because we've done almost 50 shows, and that comes up a bunch of times. Yeah. That's a for real place as far as food, wine, atmosphere. And then you noted something that no one else said. You get a Zalto glass. So that's, a big deal. And before we were saying, how do you try a Zalto glass? Go to Charlie Bird.
Yeah, no, but it's all about details. And I think in that place, as little as it is, they're details.
I agree with you. That's a great choice. Do you have a favorite all-time wine?
No, life is way too...
Do you have a couple of things or something. So instead of favorite all-time wine, what made impressions, or in the last 5 years, 10 years, what's a wine that still resonates with you?
I mean, I just had one the other day, 71 Riesling Veltliner Sonne from Prum.
Jesus.
I mean, look,
how did it drink?
it's just there was, you think of it, Riesling is sweet, but with that kind of age, the sweetness goes down. It's just such an ethereal flavor.
So it was a 71 Prum, Prum, a Riesling from
Yeah.
Germany, and what was it? Where was it from?
Spätlese from the Mosel.
Spätlese,
Yeah.
a Mosel Spätlese.
And typically, when they're young, they're very sweet, but then with age,
Right,
so that's one wine. Obviously, one of my wines, if money isn't a problem, 71 La Tâche.
Okay.
Right, or 61 La Chapelle.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
So
okay,
so those are wines obviously
those
I really die for.
those are good choices. We talked about this a little earlier, and I think that you can answer this. I want you to tell me the best wines that I can go out and buy retail for around $15. And I always set this question up. I have 3 boys. They're in their 20s. They're starting to make a little money. They're going to dinner parties. They don't want to buy crappy wine. They don't have a ton of money. So where are they getting the value for 15 to 20? Give me a red. You can give me specifics. You can give me a region. What does Aldo Sohm?
I mean, look, even though we're in fall already, but it's very humid here today and very warm. One of my to-go-to wines in that kind of price range is the Raisin de Gaulois from La Pierre.
Right.
Look, first of all, if you chill it, you kill 2 birds with one stone. You have almost the white and the red in one wine.
Right.
It's crisp, it's fresh, it's tasty. You can have it with grilled vegetables. You can have it with even fish.
Right.
It's really, really no problem into that.
That's a great choice. What else?
Then you can go a little bit out. I mean, look, one thing, we always gravitate into brands. I think what's majorly important, look, you can have some delicious muscadets where you don't have to spend a lot of money.
Muscadet is always a good answer for white. Fish, shellfish.
Absolutely. But look, you can have also Gruner Veltliners. That's the irony for me. I mean, look, I'm Austrian, I agree, I admit it, but I think it's a heavily underrated area. It's a heavily underrated area as a travel destination, because I've sent a lot of people ask me, when they visit Vienna, where can we see it? And we have set up a document for them, from the super high-end place, but also to places where you just go to a sausage stand and right, and people are blown away. Said, well, people actually, after the opera, they were there in tuxedos and said, yeah, don't compare it to a sausage stand here. It's a total different thing.
Right.
Or sent them to a shack on the green market, and all of a sudden they get the finest roast beef and the finest charcuterie, right?
Right.
And I said, I remember actually Arvid Rosengren, who works at Charlie Bird, right, said to me, honestly, I had difficulties to walk in because it didn't look so great, and then after 3.5 hours, we had difficulties to walk out.
That's the sign of the place.
That's the thing. Nobody expects anything, and they're all blown away by it.
Right. So I think those are good recommendations. The Gruner, the Raisin, and I'll post them on our site. Because I'm going to post your whole wine list answer thing, because I think people want to know what they are. All right, we're going to wrap the show up with our final segment. It's the weekly wine sip. Every week we taste a different wine on air. For our weekly wine sip this week, I asked Aldo to bring in a Sohm and Kracher Austrian Gruner. We talked about it's a collaboration between Aldo and Austrian winemaker Gerhard Kracher. This wine is available at Le Bernadin, Aldo Sohm Wine Bar, and better wine stores around New York and some other markets. I asked Aldo, it retails for around $25. You're not going to pay much more. You may pay a little less. So, Aldo, tell me, there's a few labels on your line. Tell me exactly what you brought in.
We make 4 labels in total. We have the Gruner Veltliner Lion, our entry level.
Right.
We have the Alte Reben, which I brought here. And then
So, wait, spell it. Alte
Reben, meaning old wines.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we have St. Georg and the single vineyard. Those are 2 single vineyard specific Gruner Veltliners.
Does price go up as you?
Yes.
Okay. So the Lion is the entry. This is the second.
The second, then you have
So
2
the
single.
Lion would be about $20.
In that
So
ballpark.
on my question for a great wine, the
Would be
Gruner
right there.
Lion would be right there. Okay. So we're drinking the.
Alte Reben 2013.
Okay.
Now this is actually we soon gonna switch over into the next vintage. This is something which is still in the market. We leave this wine long on the lees. That's why you find a little bit of creamier texture.
Explain to people, just give them a little wine lesson, what the lees are, and leaving them on the lees, what it does to the wine.
What the lees is basically when you have the fermentation, right? It settles at the bottom.
Right.
And it's very, very important for the wine to stay on it because you develop different flavors, and lees also protects it from oxygen. Oxygen is a sort of an enemy of wine.
Right.
To picturize that, just cut an apple apart and leave it for an hour. It will turn brown. So the lees will protect that.
So you leave the lees and you leave it on a little longer.
Yes.
Okay. And that obviously affects the character and taste.
Exactly. And it becomes just richer. It becomes more complete. We hold this longer back. What I look for our wines is to have more complexity, to have also more length, and yet to have a freshness with it. That's to me absolute key. And I think you have that here.
Okay, so let's give it the vitals. So let's start with the color. It's a light golden yellow.
Yep.
Not light, but not deep, but a beautiful color. All right. Let's help me with the nose, Aldo. It's sitting in the glass 40, 50 minutes, which is good.
It's the moment of truth.
Tell me your nose descriptors.
It's very clean. It's very precise.
Very clean. It is very precise.
It's very mineral driven. You have a lot of these whetstone characteristics. You get a lot of yellow apple characteristics, a little floral component, a touch of honey.
I picked up honey right away.
Even though there's no botrytis.
Down a right.
There's no botrytis to it.
Right. All right, so that's the nose. All right, let's go mouthfeel now. So
it's bone dry. There's no sweetness at all.
Bone dry, good acidity.
Yeah. Good texture.
Medium body.
Yeah.
It's not an unctuous wine, but it's not thin at all.
But look how long it stays with you on the palate.
Yeah, the mid palate is crazy.
It's at least 10 seconds.
It's a beautiful wine in the mouth in a lot of ways.
And it's very clean. It has still these apple-ish components.
So now talk palate.
I'm already halfway in.
Okay.
You have these apple-ish components. It stays very long.
So apple's very prominent.
Yeah. And the alcohol is integrated. Even though the wine is now, sitting for 50 minutes in the glass, it's already warm, but you still don't pick it up.
Sitting in the glass had no negative effect on it.
Not at all.
You don't have to be a big, expensive, fancy wine to have, some air in the glass. This held up nicely.
Yeah. And what's great in this wine, it works perfectly with seafood.
Well, that was my next question. What would you pair this with? So seafood, specifically, shellfish, lobster, salmon, all of that?
The moment you go in raw fish, look, just go to Le Bernardin, they have almost raw section, right? All the tartares, all the ceviche styles, this is just perfectly working with it. Or even you have some salads with it, works perfectly as well. Or if you have a chicken with it, it works also.
Yes, I agree.
It's a great food all-rounder.
Yes, it is a good food wine, and it's diverse in that sense. I had Dana Cowan on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, she's great.
And I asked her the question, her favorite wine. This is a high compliment to you. She said, and remember what you said. What was it, a 71 Latasha? Mm-hmm. She said, at Le Bernardin, I love to just go and drink Aldo's wines. And he's so humble about it.
You made me blush at the beginning, now you make me blush again.
That's a heck of an answer for somebody who knows food and wine, literally. All right, so you'd pair this with seafood. I'm not going to ask you this, but usually when I bring wine in or we drink blind, I ask my guests, do we like this wine? Because sometimes the wines aren't good. I know you like this wine. I know you put your heart into it. I love this wine. There's don't like, love. I love this wine. I think everything you said is true. I think it presents itself really well. I think it's a great food wine. I think the value is off the chart. If you think about who put their time, heart, money, effort into it, you and Gerhard, this is a winner. So this is the 2013 Sohm and Kracher Austrian Gruner Veltliner. Which label was it again?
Alte Raven.
Alte Raven. Okay, and Aldo said it's still available at some stores and certainly at the wine bar.
Yep.
So go get yourself a nice glass of this. It's not that expensive there, and you could drink it in a Zalto glass. All right, so that's our weekly wine sip. Aldo, we're going to wrap the show up. If you have a question, wine happening, or event, hit me up at sam@thegrapenation.com. That's sam@thegrapenation.com. I just want to let you know that our friends at Roberta's, where we do our show, they'll be doing an orange wine event on Sunday, October 15th from 12 noon to 7 p. There'll be over 30 producers, including some real hard-to-find stuff. I didn't get a chance to ask Aldo, which will force me to have him back, his take on natural wines, but we'll get to that one day. Please follow us on Facebook at The Grape Nation. We'll post Aldo's wine list, and we'll talk about what we sipped on the weekly wine sip. Follow us on Instagram at SBenruby, Twitter at BenRuby. And Aldo, where can we find you and all your projects on social media if people want to follow you?
It's very simple, at Aldo Sohm.
Okay.
Or you find it also at Sohm Bar.
At SOHMBAR. Yeah. You can Google Sohm and Kracher for the wines, right?
I do this with me.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right. And if you're ever at Aldo's Wine Bar at Le Bernardin,
come by.
Look for Aldo. All right, Aldo, I want to thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I had a great time. Thank you to our engineer, Vitor, and everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. I'm Sam Benruby, and you've been listening to The Grape Nation.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.